Venos and timing time. You want to go all the way around, just push this through with your finger. Welcome back to the channel. Quite a lot on the agenda for today. Finishing the valve cover. Basically what we're going to go for is an AN fitting here, just a straight line to a breather, or a catch can in this case. And there's one other hole over here. Chris kind of messed up over here because he didn't center it, so it's a little bit of an issue. There's always has to be some kind of an issue, but it's not that bad. Original fitting has a big nut basically around and it goes through. On the bottom what we have is an O-ring that seals, and it's a breather O-ring, breather fitting basically. This normally would not be rounded like this. I did that simply so I can actually turn it. Also I had to trim this nut to fit my cover and to ensure that it sits nicely in place and doesn't go anywhere. Why did I choose those points? Simply because they are the highest, is because that's where the bridges are that hold the cam shaft. So that I know there's no motion and no movement over there and nothing will hit this particular piece. But at least it looks good and it's usable. Because what we want usability and not just the looks. But this thing looks pretty sick. So if you guys plan on doing something like this kind of a setup, I chose Jags for this particular one. Part number on this is 52230. It's a Jags product, 52230. And the AN10s by Jags, they actually, it's kind of hard to see. They do have a locking pin, or a nut, a locking pin over here that you screw on using a hex. So that's what keeps it in place, which is a great deal because I know they will not move. Here's a better look of the locks. This is basically what locks it in place. And that's what we're looking at on the bottom. We got the top pretty much assembled as far as the ignition coils, everything is nice and tight, the way it's supposed to be. Now what I'm gonna do, I'll click on the injector harness and get all the wires organized and fed to the coil packs, so we are good to go on that. The turbo feed is supposed to be, the restrictor is supposed to be 1.5. The only one I was able to find at Amazon. Thank you Amazon for actually supplying me with some fittings for the coolant lines and stuff. So I re-drilled this to 1.57 because what I need is 1.5 millimeter restrictor. Coolant, we're going with an AN line, just like I said, is an AN6. It's a M14 by 1.5 AN6 fitting. That's what feeds this. It comes with a crush washer sort of deal and an O-ring, which is really nice. the lines are going right here. Here's one, which was for the heater, intake heater, right here. I mean, I should say throttle body heater. And this is the second one that was also for throttle body heater, right there. So since I do not need those, and this car doesn't drive in the winter, I don't really care about them. I'm going to reuse those and splice into my AN lines to feed coolant towards the front. One of them, it goes right here. I put a fitting over here that will go onto the AN line that will feed the turbo, and the other one goes right there. You guys see it? It's kind of dark, I don't know why. Let's see if we can get some light in there. There you go. That one used to come out and go into the throttle body right there. So now it's just an AN line. I checked, mounted, everything is good. I'm gonna feed that into the turbo so there is flow. I've pushed hard the whole week, and actually this thing was supposed to be scheduled for install around Friday. Today is Tuesday, and I'm going to attempt to put it in. So I'm a little bit ahead of my schedule. Probably the general schedule is way behind, but that's a different story. I'm done talking. I'm gonna get some work done. I don't have much time. Jeez, what a battle, I'm telling you guys. Putting an engine like this by yourself with a tranny is not the best choice, I guess. I should have pulled the transmission off, might have been easier, but it's done. The car has the engine, or engine is in the car, whichever way you put it. I temporarily put this disgusting ass hose over here just so I can reroute everything. One thing I don't like, I kind of cut this too much. I didn't know it was overlapping. So this kind of sucks. I'm gonna be looking for a new cover probably, just because it's me. Otherwise I wouldn't care. A lot of assembly. Now pretty much I'm going to see what goes where and what has to go with what. Yeah, that is kind of touching. Not good. Well, we'll see if I can hammer it, loosen up and hammer it over. Hopefully I can. Okay, so slight update. I did take care of this issue right away. because it was just pissing me off. It is cut. I had to cut it. It would not move. It wouldn't come loose. It's still freaking hot. I can't take it off. Basically, it's cut and there is clearance. It's on solid engine mounts, so the engine pretty much does not move at all whatsoever. Next thing is I want to get the engine mounts in for sure, and then just proceed with everything else and assemble everything as much as I can. The next thing would be to see if I can close the hood and if I can clear the turbocharger and the AN breather lines. From what I can see, it should clear no problem. Just a lot of assembly. Honestly, there's a lot of assembly and a lot of rerouting of things. Experiencing first issues. First issue is right here with the fitting. This actual fitting for an AN line is too tall and it will touch the hood when the hood closes, because I just tested it. So once we take the fitting off and place it down, it becomes another issue. So the hood is basically closed and it is resting on the turbo itself, which is not necessarily a good sign. Also, I forgot to mention that since I'm running the Condor bushing, Condor solid engine mount, it raises the engine slightly, I would say about 1/4 of an inch taller than what it would be on stock bushing, stock engine mounts, which also, because of the bigger turbine, causes the whole deal to go up. And it is what it is. It's the easiest way to do the whole. I love cutting hoods. Got my imprint ready. Set it. And we've got a touchdown. This is my imprint area that I have to cut right here. Alright, here we go. Here's the hole. I tried not to make it too too obvious. We do have a little bit of spacing right there. I'm thinking I should do a little, just slightly more, just literally slightly more. Alright, intercooler is in, intercooler piping is done. Everything is checked. I might need a new clamp because it's kind of weak. I've just put in a filter. I'm gonna get this locked in. Still didn't do the hoses, still didn't do the coolant. All the lines are red. So everything as far as coolant is good to go. Just needs coolant, which for the time being I'm going to run just like a bit of some kind of coolant, maybe like blue, and water, simply because I need to see if I have any leaks. And if it's just water, water is water. We all know what water is. I got the new fitting, the low profile fitting for the AN line, the oil feed. To compare it with this one, I would have to chop this out so to make it easier, but it is slightly lower profile. Not too much, but hopefully that's enough to actually hide inside, so I'll be able to close the hood. It is a little bit lower. Like I said, we don't have like huge difference. I thought we were gonna have a significant difference. There isn't really significant difference, but any difference is good difference. AN lines. This is what I'm going for out of the valve cover AN10. I believe it's one of the easier, maybe not the easiest, but the easier way for you to make hoses at home, at work, or anywhere else that will actually hold the pressure. This fitting consists of technically two items. We got our sleeve and our fitting. With the smaller ones it's a little bit easier, but the big ones is a pain in the butt, like literally a pain in the ass to put this on top of the hose, because the hose is actually really thick. It's meant to hold a lot of pressure. Once you are able to put it on, which I struggle a little bit. Next step is for you to just insert it. Get it to lock. As long as you get a few threads in there, it will go in. So we got our first line made. What I'm gonna do, I'll feed this from the bottom up, or technically from the top to the bottom, and then I will measure another one and do the same process. AN lines are made, and they look pretty okay over here. And on the bottom, let's go to the bottom. Bottom of the car. I ran them all the way over here. If anything happens, I will replace or remove or relocate them if necessary. Currently, this is pretty much the best position I can get, unless I start running different fuel lines from the tank to the back, which I don't know anything about yet. So that's pretty much good to go. And I'm gonna take care of the fuel pump right now. See how much fuel is in there actually, but first all this debris that's over here around, I'm gonna blow this with some compressed air. I don't want any of this going inside the tank. So now I'm gonna take the ring off. What I'm going to try is to do it like I did last time, but just gently. Ring is off. Now, moment of truth. Will it come out? Doesn't seem like it wants to come out on its own. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of a wiggle wiggle. And we got the fuel pump out. So this is my current, the pump that I had installed in here. I believe it's a Bosch. And judging by the amount of fuel, it's quite a lot. So I'm gonna pump this out as much as I can. And then I'll go into replacing this beautiful pump with even more beautiful, which is the Hellcat 525. Much smaller in diameter, but much more powerful. I don't know how that happens, but let's do it. A little quick view into the tank. Everything looks pretty nice and clean. Let me see what I can do by checking the amount of E85 and the quality of the E85. I do have a little tester bottle, which I'll show you guys. I'm gonna take some of that fuel into a cup, pour it into the bottle. If the result is okay, I'll leave it. If the result is crappy, obviously we'll get fresh. Ethanol E85 testing kit. You add water, just tap water, which I did. And now we're going to pour this fuel all the way to the line. Here's my result. Result is E90%, so we are at 90%, which actually is really good, because that means I don't really have to drain that fuel. The only thing I have to do is actually order a new fuel filter, replace the fuel filter, leave that fuel in there. Since it's E90, it's higher than typically you would have at a gas station. Like I said, shaken not stirred. Well, I didn't shake it good enough. Got a new result for the 85, and it's not a very good one. So that means, yes, I will have to drain everything that we got, because we are typically at about 80%, almost 85%, which is not good. I mean, I want it to be pure 85, especially for tuning. I don't want to go with crap, because that way that will throw off the whole tuning process. Okay, so the way I'm going to measure this thing is basically we're looking at from the top to the bottom of the pump. And if we use centimeters, we are at 16, well, it depends on the angle of the camera, but let's say 17 centimeters from the touch point. So about 6¼ inches. And this is actually what it has to be minimum, I would probably say. Reason for that is last time at the track when I hit the wall, I ran out of fuel. Basically the pump couldn't pick up anymore because I believe it was sitting too low, which at the time I didn't really know much. So this time, since I know a little bit more, I'm going to try to lower this as much as I possibly can in order to get it about 17 or lower. So that way when it's inserted, it will actually literally sit on the bottom and suck everything it possibly can. What I came up with. I wanted to achieve as much of the length as possible. Yes, there is a zip tie overkill, but it had to be done. It literally had to be done. So let me walk you guys through what I have. Obviously, with the filter on the bottom, it's about 17 centimeters, 17.5 centimeters, which is above 6¼ It's like 6.5 and slightly around that. So I believe it will be perfect. Once it sits in the tank, it might actually go in itself. Reason for that is I moved the zip ties pretty much as low as I can, and I used the rubber pieces that were on the sides as a cushion, so this thing does not slide much. The hose, I used the hose that came with the kit, which is actually a pretty good hose, I'm not gonna lie. Hard as hell though. Zip ties, I heated them. Plug is right here on the side, running through the back and all the way around. So it's still hooked up to the original BMW connector, which is this one on the bottom. So all that I have left right now is to actually go put this in and turn the ignition and literally see if it kicks on or not. If it doesn't kick on, obviously we're gonna have a problem, but all I want to do is just test it. So I'm gonna plug it in, do a dry run for literally a split second, just so it pump turns on and turns off. Moment of truth. Let's plug the pump in. Okay, clicked in. Battery's on. Let's see what happens when I turn the ignition. Oh. Yeah, it'll help. Shit, nothing happened. I don't know. I don't get any feedback from the pump. Well, that sucks. Okay, so let's try to plug in a power probe, give it some power through the connector, perhaps.
A few moments later.
Still got the battery hooked up. Everything's good to go. By checking, for some reason I have nothing. Nothing comes in here. So when I do, one side has ground, the other side is basically empty and dead. I will have to trace this green wire. I think if I recall before, I had a prior problem with this particular wire. So I don't like that very much. I might just run a switch for external fuel pump switch and bypass the whole deal, because it was getting on my nerves, that I remember now. And now let's check if my hookup is correct on the pump itself. According to this, we have plus and negative and positive. So this one is let's turn on the light. This one is the negative. I'm gonna plug that in and just give it a nice burst, see if it works. I really hope it works. I'm freaking out now. Okay. Alright, the pump does work, which is a good sign. So that means everything on this side is hooked up correctly and the way it's supposed to be. The only issue where I'm having right now is virtually something that's going on in the electrical system right here.
1 hour later.
Let's see what happens. Everything is pretty much hooked up, right? Double check. It's good. That doesn't matter. The excitement level rose big time because the car started. So that is a really, really good sign. Really, really good. What we're gonna do now is make sure I can actually put that missing exhaust piece on. Sorry. Got my collar here. Pipe is pretty much ready for welding. This thing is a little bit in the way, but I'm not too worried about it. First I'm gonna take it in. It is a 14 gauge steel. I originally was going to do this at home on a TIG welder, but apparently time is of the essence, like they say, so I don't really have that time right now. So what we're going to do is do it right here with a MIG welder. Got the car running. It's been running for about 30 minutes. In the braking process right now. I'm gonna give it a few revs just to see how it revs up a little bit. I'm not gonna rev it a lot. We'll shut it down, check oil, check filter, and button everything up. Right? Yeah. heavy. Engine oil cooler time. My idea is to create, I have those two brackets, and basically get it up here as much as I can using the current points of contact, and then make a new one on here and just hang the wire hoses through the hole and feed them around into the housing itself. So that's what I'm working on. I've had a few ideas, but pretty much this would be one of the better ones, I would say. So the idea for the oil cooler, this brackets, is basically, this is a straight bracket that mounts here where the hood latch used to be. I'll bust another hole somewhere in this area just to make sure it's all nice and good. Then, when everything is up and running, I will have enough clearance, as we can see, between the intercooler and the front. Still room for air to go into the radiator, because the fan is pretty much in this section as well. And I've made this bracket a little curved, simply because when I bolt it in, this section is curved as well, so it should actually make it nice and sturdy. Sort of even too high, which from what I can tell, I might have to unbend one of the sections just slightly, but it's work in progress, trial and error. So far it's been trial and error big time. Oil cooler installed, lines are run. Simply going up to the hole by the headlight and out. So far they're sitting over here on the side, but this is where they're going to go. Of course, I'm gonna have to probably zip tie them to one of the hoses so they actually look somewhat decent. But yeah, I'm pretty much done with this one. A little modification will need to be done to the actual nose piece. It's kind of thick, so I need to make it less thick. And the best way to do that is sort of trim it. Just trim it a little bit. Now, the more difficult portion of my show, which is installing a gauge, ethanol content, fuel temperature, AFR gauge, all in one basically. Innovative Motorsports 9303 is the gauge that I'm going to install. It's an AFR gauge that will go onto the exhaust system, followed by this little contraption. This little contraption is the ethanol level, fuel temperature, and fuel pressure sensor. That's all in one. I'm gonna find a spot underneath, probably on a return line, because it even says in the instruction manual, I actually read that it is they prefer that you install on a return line. Fuel content contraption looking thing is installed. It is sitting on the fuel return line, pretty much like right there. And mostly work has to be done from the bottom to get it in. Cables have been run behind the engine, down here, and go into the firewall inside the cabin. Same with the O2 sensor. I got it running down my crappy cover over here, underneath all the wiring, down into the junction and into the cabin. It's a crazy amount of wiring for just one gauge. Vacuuming will be required, like big time vacuuming and whole cleanup of the interior. That's disgusting. It just pisses me off anyway. I do have the hole. Made the hole and the gauge should just go in. So let's see how this thing fits and how does that look. Gauge is installed. Everything is working the way probably it should. Only problem, there's always problems and always issues. So yeah, the only problem that I'm facing right now is the exhaust pipe is pretty short, so it's giving potentially under a low load incorrect AFR reading. But I read in the instruction manual that at full open throttle the reading should be correct. So I'm hoping that it's going to be correct and AFR will be the way it's supposed to be. So power key, it's heating up for the sensor. Fuel pressure is 0 right now. Obviously it's not running. 72% ethanol content and 77 degrees Fahrenheit. I've done the second break-in run, I guess idle and just a little bit of revving, additional 30 minutes, so that's second time. And tomorrow I'm going to do additional 30 minutes with a little bit more revving. And all I can say is this thing is really angry when it revs up. I mean, the throttle response is substantially much better than it used to be. Feels really crazy, to be honest. And after that, it's going to go into oil change. I'm going to hook up the oil cooler and everything else. One other thing I wanted to include in this video, apparently, which I cannot, is a test drive today. Simply because we got snow. It is end of April. We got snow over here in Illinois. And that's not something I was expecting really today. So the test drive has been cancelled, but that will be in the next footage, in the next video. That's all for this video. Everything is hooked up and ready to go. Oh, one additional, I did get a screen over here for the turbo. I'm thinking about doing a boost test just in case to see how everything is. But once everything is done, then I'll do the boost test and check everything else out. Thank you for watching Superior Drift Garage, and I'll see you in part 6.